casinos and high fashion brands. We ball like we own the world. The only concern is you, my only girl. And when we speaking in tongues, breathing hard when I'm squeezing your lungs. Keep it strong, but I gotta hit the streets when I'm done. It's joy and pain. When you trying to get ahead of the game, it's fucked up, but you never complain. You just pray I don't get killed when I hit the hood. Just another 100 million, I'm equipped for good. No more drug wars, trips to jail and shootouts. Getting loot out, but lawyers and bail to get you through out. Just me and you, how off sex and twisted. You OG to you OD, addicted.
He's so contagious, returns my pages. He's got me anxious, he's what I waited for. He keeps me guessing, spontaneous. He's so persuasive, and I'm mismated. He's so contagious, returns my pages. He's got me anxious, he's what I waited for. He keeps me guessing, spontaneous. He's so persuasive, and I'm mismated.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am now proud to introduce to you the one, the only.
Good evening and welcome to Goddesses and Devils with your hosts Amanda Mcmanus and Katie Kamara. Joining us tonight is Christopher Wayne Fisher. So before we get started, here is a quick disclaimer. This show is for a mature audience only, and we ask that everyone please be respectful to one another. There's a zero tolerance for any forms of harassment, disrespect, or vulgar comments. So if you feel that your comment may offend someone, please respectively keep it to yourself. Tonight we'll be talking all about porn and addictions. With that being said, let's get started. So tonight's going to be fun, guys, like I said, and interesting. So there's going to be topics, like I said, that we're speaking about that may stir up some decent comments here in the comment section below this live. So we'll do our best to get to you, and please feel free to call in. Our number is posted up there on the screen. All call-ins are welcome. So an addiction is classified as a complex condition. It's a brain disease that is manifested by compulsive substances used despite harmful consequences. But there are many different types of addictions. For instance, porn, right? How is it addictive? Why is it addictive? And who does it affect? Right? These are several questions that we're hoping to find the answers to tonight. People with addictions have an intense focus on using a certain substance in a lot of cases, such as alcohol or drugs, to the point that it pretty much takes over their life. They keep using alcohol, new word, new word, but no, we're not using alcohols tonight. Not tonight. Okay, we're referring to alcohol. But
You know, alcohol probably is that too, because it seeks out the worst in people.
I wouldn't even doubt that at this point. I haven't even been drinking, and look, it's seeking out the worst side of my brain right now. But it's okay.
It's okay.
But
I got you. I got you covered.
Alcohol or drugs.
Yeah, no, I got
Katie.
you covered. I got plenty more I can send over to you. It's all good.
So getting on the topic, right? Would that make us like an alcohol whore because we drink alcohol and we abuse it?
Oh, no, I think it's alcohol itself.
Oh, okay. Just wondering. Because, I mean, last time on one of our shows, I was a camel's vagina. So, I mean,
Now,
just put it out there. Just wondering.
What is a cat?
I don't know, but it goes back. I swear,
I
it
learned
goes.
a lot on this show.
Yeah, but you see, it goes back to what we were our very first show when we were talking about the words and the meanings. So, considering that we are on a show where we promote equality and equality like natured subjects, I wouldn't be going down that line of calling an alcohol. You could do that in your own bedroom, but I mean, if you wanted to be called an alcohol, but then go right ahead. But why are we demeaning women?
Exactly. And see, and that's the point. When we talk about these shows and these topics and we do this type of work, we string up conversations like that. And alcohol, like we were saying, is an addictive substance. And that's what this show is about. When we inhibit ourselves with alcohol, drugs, and things like that, we actually desensitize our thoughts. We don't really respect others and we demean people in a lot of ways. Right, so that's why we kind of went into that, just so you guys know. We kind of just spiraled into that, but it was a great topic and a great point, as usual. And that's what this show is all about, is creating that equality amongst one another and within each other. So getting back on topic, so people who are addicted to these substances, they keep using them, even when they know it causes so much problems. You know, it desensitizes us. It creates havoc in our lives. It makes, it makes us not so keen on judgment. But, you know, it pretty much, like I said, it gets to the point where it actually consumes people's lives in a lot of cases. And they keep using this substance knowing that it's creating these problems. So addictions can come in different forms, right? So when you have an addiction, it may not necessarily be just to drugs and alcohol. It could be to different things, right? And now, when I talk about the differences, I'm pretty much talking about like compulsive nature and the behavior side of it, right? So that's what I'm talking about. So, well, the compulsive nature of the actual behavior that is often indicative to a behavioral addiction in an individual. So that's what I'm referring to when I say that. And now these come in like compulsions that the individual continuously engages in that activity or that behavior, despite the negative impacts on the person and their ability to remain mentally or physically healthy and functional in their home community or anywhere. That's more of a behavioral addiction, right? Another form of an addiction is physical dependency, right? So that's characterized by going through episodes of withdrawal, and it usually requires an actual diagnosis or a medical, classification in somebody that has that type of addiction, right? So I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get back on my screen here. Sorry. But anyway, so like I was saying, now that form, like I said, is physical dependency, and that's categorized by the symptoms of withdrawal. And it is required in order for someone to be diagnosed with the addiction disorder. But so that means they have to be pretty much diagnosed with this. But like I was saying, I'm sorry, like I said, I'm not home right now, guys, so I'm a little thrown off. But bear with me. We'll have a good show anyway.
You're great. You're always great, you and Katie.
Well, let me throw something.
We are just who we are, and that's what we are.
You're awesome.
Well,
I hope you realize that.
Let me help you out, Amanda. So there's two types of addictions: physical addiction and psychological addiction. Of course, there's a lot of correlation between the brain, and of course, in physical addiction is when your body cells can't function without a substance or a drug, and you physically become dependent on it. And once the body just starts to become depleted of whatever the substance may be, the withdrawals are painful, and when they do kick in, and of course, since the quickest way to ease the pain is to take more drugs, and so those people who do go cold turkey are unable, and they become lifelong drug addicts. And we all know what withdrawals are like. Some symptoms of that may be physical addictions, especially for physical, tremors, shakes, nausea, diarrhea, chills, and body aches. If you have a psychological addiction or an emotional addiction, which is defined as compulsion or a perceived need to use. For example, someone who's addicted to marijuana may think that they have to have the drug in order to fall asleep quickly or peaceful or be mellowed out. But however, they do actually fall asleep without the drug, but they'll do so by or without actually experiencing any physical effects of the drug itself, and no withdrawals, because obviously you're falling into sleep. Same goes with alcohol. Alcohol has the same effect. So we're not just talking about drugs here. So you can call alcohol a drug, anything that inhibits the brain in any way whatsoever. And of course, that addiction will affect your brain. And we've all known that. I mean, I grew up, correct me if I'm wrong, Amanda, we all grew up knowing that alcohol, we lose our brain cells. So it's a similar biology in terms of the addiction rate and the withdrawal rate and the experiences that occur of long use of addictions. Now, of course, that can go into other addictions as well. Now, impulsiveness, what you mentioned before, can go into just as simple as shoe shopping or going shopping in general. A lot of women experience this, and it's like, okay, even money addictions, going to gamble. Gambling is one of those. Hoarding is another one. Too. Just being unclean, going beyond hoarding, just being unclean because of whatever reason. It's psychological.
Right.
Hoarding's complex. It's also found in people with brain disease too.
Yes, and did you also know that highly successful people are actually prone to addiction?
Yeah.
So it's been a common assumption that people with low IQs are more adept in becoming addicts. It's actually the opposite. People who have or high-powered people, or people of great success, or people that are overachievers, become the biggest addicts. They go into drugs, they go into sex, they go into anything that you could possibly think of, and these people can actually send others also into running into addiction as well. So there's a pattern there. So we're talking about, in terms of successful people, we're talking about instant gratification, impulsiveness, and the drive, the obsession for that drive, and risk-taking behaviors. Um, but those traits don't be fooled, because those traits are also what makes a very good CEO, because they're all tied in with pleasure seeking and the reward that comes with that pleasure. So it's believed to be
Right,
that
it's like a gratification they feel, and it's like a natural release of endorphins that give them that natural high, which wants them and has them craving for that. So they pretty much escalate that feeling by incorporating alcohol and drugs, and now that natural endorphin becomes now this super endorphin, which gives them a higher gratification. And yeah, that would actually fall. Wouldn't that be more of a an obsessive compulsive type of addiction in a sense? It's kind of
a multiple.
you know, the DSM-5 is great, but it's a multitude of things.
Yeah, it's not one one thing, but I mean, the whole point of me mentioning it in the first place is that we're always assuming that the lack of IQ or a lack of intelligence within a person is more prone to becoming addicted, when it's actually the complete opposite. Because obviously, if you, let's just say, for instance, and I'm probably saying this wrong here, if you are not successful and you're just an everyday Joe Blow, and you don't experience those highs in life all the time like a successful person would, you're more prone, you could be, not always, but you could be more prone to other mental health disorders like depression. So it's a very big sliding scale about what with addiction and mental health, and it's very, very hard to define or find a middle ground as to which way you would lean, because we all have an addiction of some sort, let alone we are all prone to having a mental health condition of some sort as well, even if it is the most basic of mental health disorders or conditions or addictions.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, we all indulge in these behaviors where we either are social drinkers or we're social smokers, or whatever the case may be. We'd like to classify ourselves in, but we all have the ability to go down that path. And a lot of times, our hardships kind of push us further down that path, and that's why it falls under a mental thing, because it really depends on our mentality and when we begin these things. A lot of people, based on statistics, have stated the reason why they started drinking or turning to drugs or other forms of substances. You know, I'm not talking about just, you know, regular marijuana. I'm talking about, there's a whole list of things I can shoot off that are considered as substances, such as cocaine, heroin, and so forth. And a lot of them turn to it, like Katie was saying, because they're trying to dim out and get rid of those past traumatic events. So it's not really uncommon to hear somebody who has went through a traumatic event eventually relying on these things to dim out those past monsters and demons, in a sense, that are inside their head. So, I mean, it's one of those things where we lean on these types of substances as a crutch in times of need, but we're really, what we're doing is we're really creating a bigger issue for ourselves, because now we start going from, okay, the occasional drinker, to now the formal drinker, to now the constant drinker. And that's what it is. It's a pattern. So that's what Katie was saying, when it's a pattern. You know, addictions, like Katie was saying, can lead into other behaviors like obsessive compulsive disorders. Often disorders are accompanied with, you know, with other disorders, making it so much harder to combat. So the individual themselves may seek out all the help they can get, but if the professional they're working with does not take time to tackle each and every one of them, it's a very good chance that that person will go back into a relapse. And, you know, like I said, a lot of these issues are deep rooted. These issues stemming from, like I said earlier, past traumas, you know, the way they grew up in their homes. It doesn't necessarily have to be that they were neglected, abused, but they could have just really suffered from economic hardships. And unfortunately, when they grow up, they get into the indulging phase because now they have money. Now they have what they never had. So now they can spend it on things. And that's what Katie was touching on, you know, earlier as well. So when we have all this is like the perfect mix to create that monster inside you, that indulgent monster that wants to just go and constantly drink it. A lot of people can't have just one beer when they go out. A lot of them have to have one beer followed by a shot, followed by a cup of liquor, followed by another beer. And it's it's just it makes you want more and more and more. And does that necessarily say you have a problem? No, it does not. It really doesn't. But that's what we're talking about. Some people can't just have one drink on a Saturday and not have another drink for like a month or 2 years. These individuals have to have a drink every night, every day. And they can actually go through symptoms of withdrawal if they do not drink. And they can get very sick. And now we're talking about things that are not mentally in their head. These are things that are affecting their body chemically. So their body's going through this chemical reaction from the withdrawal, which is pretty much putting their parasympathetic system on when I tell you, on like red. Like it's just, okay, listen, we need to get a drink in me, or I'm going to just start firing, and whatever's going to hurt you is going to hurt you. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So that's exactly what happens. So like I was saying, when these things are accompanied by so much, whether it's post-traumatic stress, whether it's earlyhood trauma, early childhood traumas, or anything of that nature, what happens is that we see we see this actually. Sorry, I have my family going back and forth, so every so often I see them ducking and trying to duck behind me, but it's just like, yeah, they're not getting smaller, so it's just more, yeah, it's just more comical. But no, I love my family. But no, so like I was saying, so we see these things where there goes another one. So we see these things where it's just, where it's just a repetitive thing, and unfortunately, this is what creates the problem in these individuals, because they're trying to remedy by putting a small Band-Aid on. This is my husband. We're trying to do a remedy and put a Band-Aid on things. And when we try to do that, we create more of a problem. We create more of a problem within us. And then sorry guys, it's just like very busy. Like I said, I'm actually at a family gathering, which I am doing the show live from my family's house. So we are going to see them going back and forth. So just giving you guys a heads up. So I don't really mean to sound distracted. But this is a very serious topic. I don't find any of this funny. I don't find addictions funny. I don't find people suffering funny. I just find the fact that my family's funny because they keep trying to duck and they're all the way back there. And it's like, bro, we all see you. You know, it's you're on candid camera. That's exactly what it is. You're on candid camera and we're catching you.
Yeah, whatever.
Hopefully one of them, when they come this way, it'll be funny.
It sounds like they're being pretty cool about it, though.
Yeah, no, they're awesome. They really are. And they're very supportive. And they're supportive in my work. And you know, and they're supportive to our work, because we all work hard here on Goddesses and Devils to bring you as much information as I can.
You are mute.
Yeah, I had to mute myself. I'm sorry. But anyway, getting back to the topic. But yeah, so we do these type of things because there are people out there that are suffering. There are people out there that are going through this, and there's actual hotlines and there's actual things that people can do to reach out to professionals that can assist them with these. And a lot of times that is not as announced as it should be. There's not a bunch of things going across our screens on our TVs or in alerts or notifications stating that these these places are here. The other issue is financially, a lot of people can't afford the addiction counseling. So what happens is they just keep up with this addiction, and a lot of them, like I said, they go through these withdrawal symptoms. So it's even harder for them to, to come back from that addiction. And so when they are currently in that state, they become different. Your brother is not your brother no more. Your sister is not your sister no more. Your aunt is different. Your uncle, whoever's addicted, no matter who they are in your life, a friend, they change. And it's not because they're changing because they don't like you. They're changing because, like Katie mentioned and Christopher mentioned earlier, the natural chemical responses in their brain and in their body is shifting. And it's inhibiting those type of reactions that they would have had they not been involved with this. So, like I was saying, it's just one of those things where it's like either you get help for it or you suffer with it. But I just want to let you guys know out there, you don't have to suffer alone. If anybody out here listening to our show tonight is currently going through situations like this, I just want to let you know there's help out there, and there's places that will help you for free in the community. You just have to reach out and be willing to put in the work, because it is not easy. Like Katie mentioned, it does come with a lot of struggles. So
the other thing that I do want to mention, too is that there's a myth out there that people have to hit rock bottom before they can actually get well. Might I suggest to you that is not true. It's simply dangerous, and the longer that you wait, the sicker the person gets, and it can have deadly consequences. It does actually show in studies that people forced into treatment have an equal chance of success as people who decide to voluntarily go into a program. So also, people who get help from their illnesses that is so severe have more resources to draw upon, such as a supportive family or a job or anything else of that nature to help them successfully recover. So the sooner someone gets help, the better. But let me remind you that addiction is a chronic disease, which means that it is a long-lasting condition, that it does have physical ailments that come with long-term addiction that can be controlled but not cured. I do know of a man who used to live in my community where I used to live, who got so screwed up on addicts. I think from what I understood, he was doing coke. He was probably in his early 40s. He looked like a 70-year-old man, could not walk. He couldn't even keep his pants up, and he was clean, but he couldn't keep his pants up any longer. To walk across the street, it was like taking not even an inch. A footstep for him, we would have a normal pace, 2, 3, 4 feet maybe between, depending on how long your legs are, but between our footsteps. With him, we're talking inch by inch. So you could imagine how long it took for him to cross a road. Like, we're talking like a double lane road here. And so one afternoon, I happened to be going down to the store, and I saw him crossing the road. And he was at an intersection at the traffic lights, waiting to cross. He saw the little little white man that said, "Okay, it's signaled your time to go across the road," and everybody just looked at him. Everybody was honking their horns, like, "Get a move on," being really ignorant to the fact that that there was something wrong and he needed help. Well, he got maybe about I don't know, probably about 10 feet into the intersection. He'd only just barely one lane, and he fell over. Everybody there did absolutely nothing. And so, you know what? I had bags in my hand. I dropped them all. I didn't care. I had my pocketbook with me. I did not care about that anymore. I dropped, there was a risk that my stuff could be stolen at the same time. So I went across the road and I helped this man all the way across the road, I did not give a flying two hoots about the traffic lights at that point. It was a busy road. It was on Pennsylvania Avenue here in DC, and it's an extremely busy road. And so I signaled to the driver. I'm like, put up with it. I'm going to help this man across the road. Like, the least that you could do is get out of your car and help me. But do you think that anyone would get out of their car? Nope. Because nobody has the support or the what's the word? Compassion for people like this. They think that they're just doing it to themselves and that there's no way out. And all of these judgments that we pass on people to or addicts, we think that they're doing it to themselves. Okay, well, there's some places out there that, you know, that people are doing it for themselves. It is a choice. I mean, we all live in free will. Well, some of us do anyway. But no one will choose to get an addiction any more than they'd choose to get cancer. So, you know, addiction is the consequence of many contributing factors: genetics, upbringing, trauma, and other influence. And people with addiction usually live very, very miserable lives. And let me pose a question to you. If you were out there and you're an addict, wouldn't you choose to live a different way if you were given the chance? So for those people who cast judgment to addicts as if they're doing it to themselves, or they're just, you know, people that should die because of that, maybe think again about what you're thinking and feeling, because there maybe that is a personal issue within yourself, not necessarily within that person. And these people need to be shown addictions, whether they recognize it or not. Show them some compassion and quit judging people, because we all have our way of thinking. We all have our choices in life, whether good or bad. But when we face these type of things together, that includes all mental health conditions. When we face these problems together we can learn, together we can help each other, together we can show more compassion to our community that we have. And we can learn through programs that are all over this country and all over the world that deal with addiction. And of course, it does. The disease itself, it affects everyone. It doesn't discriminate. No matter your income, your ethnicity, your religion, your family, your profession. And nationally here in the US, about 1 in 8 people aged 12 and up are greatly impacted by addiction. So when we're looking at things like this, you know, help somebody, show that compassion. I think I lost my co-host.
No, you're absolutely right. Everything that you said is absolutely right. I mean, you know, the problem is people don't want to get involved. People don't want to know. People don't want to be accountable. People don't want to be responsible. And a lot of times we got to look at it as we're all humans. When you need help, how do you feel? You feel alone? Do you feel like you're being ignored? Like, those people feel the same way too. And also, another form of addiction that we've seen a high rise in for the longest time now, and I'm talking about years now, is addiction to prescription pain medicine. These medications are handed out for numerous reasons, but people become addicted to it and they suffer because of it. And their pain symptoms don't ever go away, and they, you know, and they feel horrible without it. And see, and that's the thing that we have to look at. When we're introducing any type of substance into our body, the reactions that it can have is devastating. It is devastating. And unfortunately, like Katie said, these people haven't chose to be addicted. These people haven't chose that particular life to be on the streets, to be suffering. And where's the compassion in people?
Well, here's the thing.
You know, do we forget that feel?
here's the thing is that there's a myth out there that people with addiction are bad and they need to be punished. Which goes into what you just said and what I just said previously. You know, sometimes after a prolonged substance use, people with addiction will do horrible things. On the big end of the spectrum, they abuse more. They abuse themselves and they abuse other people. On the other end of the spectrum, you have higher suicidal rates. But these bad acts are often impossible to understand, and they're due to profound changes in the brain which compel them to lie, cheat, steal, or keep using. And while this behavior can't be condoned, it's important to understand that they do it because they're deeply sick and need help. And people need treatment, not punishment, to get well. So just be careful on how you intervene. You know, we're always going to say, oh, there's a family member there, they're this, they're that, and we need to have an intervention. Be careful on how you do that. Because the method of the intervention could be 10 times worse than what they're already going through. And so with addiction, it's treated behaviorally, so it must be a behavioral problem. It's another myth that I just want to bust. Human behavior begins in the brain, but advanced studies in the brain show that different types of depression and other illnesses, including addiction, sometimes behavioral treatments like counseling are just enough. Sometimes medications will be required. But the fact that behavioral treatments can be effective does not mean addiction isn't a real illness. And sometimes these behavioral treatments don't work either. And so you have a prolonged life of addictions that are not even to make you better. And that's where you were talking about, Amanda, about prescription medications. They're forced upon you.
Right. And so with that being said, let's take our first break. And when we come back, we'll be talking about other addictions, and we'll be talking about porn and how porn has been a topic of interest in the addiction realm, because some people claim that they are addicted to it as well as addicted to sex. So when we come back, we're going to talk all about that.
Adrenalize me. continued asking him. He lifted up himself and said unto them, He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. Listen closely to what I'm about to say. I think I've heard just about enough of your hypocritical ways. Don't try and stop me now. Don't you make a sound. You built yourself up oh so high just to tear me down. I'm so tired of you telling me how to live and what I should not be. And I'm so tired of you telling me what to do and what I don't believe. And I'm so over you telling me why I should hate and only you can see. And I'm so sick of you telling me that I'm a bird, I will not be free. This is my song, my red crusade. What will I say? What will I do? Maybe as fear that leads your eyes. Maybe you're me and I am you. So go ahead and bite your finger. Tell me who to love. Is it him or her? Why will you see this as a wire? As I am, honey, I'm not your personal. Wanna change, stay out of my way. I don't need you to understand that I'm already saved. Maybe you should stop questioning all your brain. Can you look me in the eyes, say we're not the same? Did you really think by pushing me I won't become what you want me to be? And did you really think by hating me I'd opened up, I just hand you the key? I know you're scared and you don't understand. This is my life, this is who I am. What I do know
And we are back on Goddesses and Devils with your hosts, Katie Kamara and Amanda Mcmanus. And tonight we're talking all about addictions and sex. Well, sex addictions as well. All encompassing. If you want to find out where we are, you can go to the Global Enlightenment Radio Network.com website and look up on the affiliates page on the website. You will see where we are streamed live all around the world. If you want to see what we do, you can go to soma-fusion.com or somafusionmedia.com. If you want to call in, you can call in at 929-436-2866 with the meeting ID 522-657-2748. And we'd love to hear what your thoughts and opinions are of this. But now we're going to get into sex addiction. And
So how would one consider themselves addicted to sex? Well, it is not the fact that they're addicted to the action, right? That's what they're saying, right? No, it's just the seeing of a person's body or the act or whatever. It's addictive to watch or whatever the case may be. So they're saying that people are addicted to porn. And I'm thinking to myself, well, would that make me addicted because I love sex? No, it doesn't. So when does that addiction actually tie into porn? And why does that tie into an addiction? When we look at it, voyeurism is a form of watching someone in a sexual act, right? We see people do that on live web cameras. We see them do that on their couches and they're putting on a video, whatever the case may be. But these people, it becomes a point of addiction when these people literally solely respond to this. And it's one of those things where you look at it like, well, what do you mean people respond to it? Well, I'm talking about statistically speaking. I'm not even going to numbers because there are a lot of them. A lot of people have complained of their spouse or their significant other or their partner engaging in sexual behavior in the start of the relationship, and they watched porn and it was okay, but then now they solely watch porn and they're not engaging in the bedroom. So this is where we start seeing that addiction to porn come in. Now, everybody is human, right? We have the sexual drive, right? And when we have that drive, that is natural to us. That's a human instinct that we have. But now when that instinct starts to take over us, this is where they're saying that it becomes addictive because you crave it, you need it, you want it, you can't function without it. Some men are saying that they can't even focus on their work because they need to engage in this activity afterwards. It's kind of like a nightcap where, you take a shot or something, you go to bed. Well, this is their nightcap. And then they start getting involved with escorts, prostitutes, porn itself. So this actually starts leading into, and they say that porn is the gateway to this all, right? So then this starts actually leading into the sex addiction because they crave it, they want it, they need it. So this is what we're seeing here statistically, and there's plenty of information out there. Just Google it if you want. There's a lot of scientific sites that express things like that. The National Association of Psychology, they have a bunch of topics on that. So when you start looking into things like that and understanding it, then it starts becoming apparent, well, this is why they classify it as an addiction.
Well, I can go into the 6 types of sex addicts that are out there. I do want to mention that they're not like I said, that there are actually 6 types. Sex addiction is in the world of psychology is actually called hypersexuality. This is a little bit going more than the need to have sex. This is going into addiction in itself. So the first type is biological sex addicts, and these are people whose excessive masturbation and pornography viewing is hijacked by the sexual response to its attaching images to the fantasy. So these people have challenges with relational sex, although most people have the biological type as one component of their addiction. about 15% are solely biological based. And these people show signs that they are, one, addicted to masturbation and pornography. Their brain is conditioned to seek neurological highs from the addictive behavior in itself, and their increased endorphins releases lead to repeat patterns of behavior. Now, the second type is psychological. These are the people of sex addicts that have suffered some form of past abuse or trauma or neglect. These people find the combination of messages in fantasy world in the sexual chemical cocktail to the brain and to be a slave for their hurting soul. Simply put, they medicate the past pain with their souls in sexually acting out, which is their form of medicine. And these painful events will ultimately need to be addressed for them to fully heal. The second one, and these ones obviously will be linked to people who self-medicate past issues of abandonment, abuse, and neglect. And just remember that your brain, these are the warning signs, your brain elevates your self-image, personal value, and perceived worth because the endorphin highs. So this is a psychological reaction to the sex addiction itself. The third one is spiritual. The person with this type is looking for a spiritual connection in all the wrong places. And they talk about their spiritual hole. This person tries sex for the spiritual void, and it doesn't even scratch an itch over time. So they keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And so, in other words, I work in the metaphysical realm for myself. These are people that become spiritual sex addicts looking for the Kundalini effect, searching for God. So be aware that it can become an addiction practice. Your job is to figure out when to stop and when to find that. Because, I mean, we're all looking for a high and we're all looking for God, but don't go that high. And there's nothing wrong with it, but just
don't
control.
put the two together.
Yeah.
Don't put the two together.
The fourth type is trauma-based sex addicts. So in other words, I was just talking about the psychological-based sex addicts that show warning signs of past abuse or neglect. These ones are trauma-based, and they have experienced sexual traumas as a child or adolescence, and the trauma becomes a major repetitive behavior in their addiction. For trauma-based, the trauma determines the flavor of the sex addiction. So again, with people like that, they need to address the trauma itself in order to heal. And of course, the predominant fantasy comes from and is very similar to the trauma itself. And this applies to people who have been sexually assaulted in some way, rape, molestation, or sex abuse. Okay. The fifth type is intimacy. What am I saying today? I'm just as bad as you, Amanda. Intimacy. And
my word. I don't know where I got alcohol and alcohol, but alcohol came up, and I'm just like, well, maybe because we were talking about sex tonight. I don't know. And I did grab myself a beer, and that's the only one I had for tonight. But that's what I'm saying. It's okay for us to do these things, but yeah, when we start mixing all that stuff in there, it's just.
Maybe because downside, alcohol and abuse is a very unforgiving mistress.
Oh, maybe that's, you know what? Katie, Christopher just solved the word alcohol when we mix it with whore, alcohol, and it's an unforgiven mistress.
Yes, not the humans that are the whore, it's the drug itself. Alcohol is also known as the gateway drug in recent studies.
I like your thinking.
when young people take it.
Christopher, see, this is what I'm talking about. You are amazing. This is like, we need to really get that into like the dictionary ASAP for someone steals it. That's it. And we're gonna say founder Christopher.
Yes, let's copyright it.
Let's do it. Cause like,
Make it property of Gurn, our network.
exactly. That's what we should do because, I mean, not for nothing, this is what we're talking about, right? We're talking about how this all ties in, right? And what Katie was saying with, like, okay, so have you watched porn before, Christopher?
Well, I was 18, I was tasked with telling my mother, my adopted mother, when my stepbrother watched it. I was the one to tell on him because he had a policy of get your whipping if he watched it.
So you were the enforcer. You enforced the whippings.
Yeah, I didn't. I don't know why porn doesn't give me a sense of adulation or stimulation. It don't. To me, I find it boring.
See, and that's the thing. I'm the type of person that, okay, I understand why they're doing it. I understand the purpose of it. But why when I could just go do it myself? It makes no sense.
I feel it cheapens
It's the same thing.
sexuality in women.
It's the same question I pose to
Porn.
men who want to cheat on their wives. It's like, you want to go out there, they have the same thing, they have the, you know, like, really? It's the same with, and men
Right.
who want to watch porn in front of their wives and don't do anything with them. It's like, hold up, like, really? And it goes for those people
I think the only purpose of porn is to watch it with your wife to learn new methods.
Yeah, watch it with your partner. Gosh, what the
Well,
hell?
yeah, it would be.
Like, I'd be
And new
sitting there,
fantasies.
like, really?
I could get that. I could get like trying to learn new moves or new exciting things in the bedroom. Okay, you use that as a reference, so it's kind of like a reference tool. But I'm still stuck on the fact. Well,
If
didn't
you
we
don't have a mate, you
other
can use it as a reference tool for masturbation.
well, that's what I'm
there are
saying. Like,
plenty of
wouldn't we
guys
have
out there.
figured this out already? Why do I need a movie to teach me how to do things? You know, we always tell our kids growing up, you know, these are just movies. Don't do what they do in the movies. Well, shit. Eventually, they're gonna find that out, and they're gonna do what they're seeing on that. So it's like, what the hell? Like, where do we go from there? It's like, you know, and then other people, you know, depending on where you come from, if you come from a religious background or a spiritual background, some people completely denounce it and become, born again or just stay abstinent because they're staying their natural selves. And it's kind of like, okay, I can understand that, but then I don't understand that other aspect because I'm like, I'm still stuck on it. Well, I'm more of a hands-on type of person, so if you're more interested in what you're watching on TV, then I really don't think you could do it for me. So it's kind of like
neglecting
one of those things for
neglecting
me.
what-
There's even a
what's right
song
in
that
front of you.
encourages men and women to watch porn together. You know the song "Do What They Do" on the Discovery Channel.
Yeah, but that goes the
Yes.
same for men
Yes,
that
I-
feel the need and desire to finish first.
Yeah.
I just went way off topic there.
Listen. No. It's a part of the whole thing because the whole point of the addiction is to get gratification. So when they are watching porn, they're getting some sort of gratification. But the gratification itself is not really fully rewarding because when you look at it, what are you getting from it? Really, what is that? You know, like when I watch it, I see two people engaged in an act, and I'm like, okay, cool, they're enjoying themselves, they're enjoying each other's company. Okay, that's fine. But like I said, I'm the type of person that I look at it and I'm like, well, why do I want to watch it when I have a partner to do it with? You know what I mean? I'm not saying that go out and get 100 partners and be promiscuous, but if you have a partner and you and your partner, one doesn't like it and the other likes it, and you force the other one to watch it, that's kind of abusive too if you think about it. Mental abuse right there. Because if somebody's not interested in it and you're pushing this form of your interest on them, and you want to watch it and make your wife watch it for no reason, then it's kind of like, well, That's more of a mental thing going on. And that's why we're saying a lot of these addictions, whether it be a sex addict or whether it be somebody who's addicted. That's a new word.
Okay, I have a meaning for that one too.
What's that word?
Addicted.
Yeah, what's the meaning?
I'm thinking of it right now. Addiction is when it's like a drink. You drink, you know how like Adam eats the forbidden fruit?
Oh, so addiction is the forbidden drink.
Yes, or a forbidden habit.
I love this.
See?
You're awesome, Christopher. You're awesome. I mean, Katie, what do you think? I mean, what do you think about watching porn? Would you rather do it, or would you rather watch it? Or do you get some sort of
to me, it's just
feeling
foreplay.
from watching
I mean, to me, it's just foreplay, but it doesn't last that long, really. Like, really? Like, yeah. I mean, not that I really actively go out and watch it, because it just doesn't interest me at all. But no. But
do you think that
it's each
women are more opposed to porn than males, or do you think that women can equally be into porn?
Well, see, here's the thing. I know women are into porn. I used to be one of them. Like, really. I just don't do that anymore because I'm an erotic author. So why would I feel the need? I entertain my own rights, not actually get off on my own.
Wow,
rights.
you hear, and also you hear men talk about female and female porn, and women talk about male on male porn. And you know what the answers I get on that are? Because they claim that people of the same sex know what they want, right?
No.
Oh, so you're saying that the reason why people say they watch it is because women know what a woman wants and a man knows what a man wants?
Yeah, and then they get ideas.
I don't believe that comment to be entirely true. No.
I don't.
Let me tell you, it does take a lot of time to master what you need to master, but you need to do it on your own. Some things you need to do on your own time to master. Like for women who want to learn where all their spots are. That takes solo practice, but you can also have the alternative and do it with a partner, so that they can learn as well. You got to remember that sex is a team sport, so you want to include each and every part of your partner or your multiple partners, if that's floats your boat or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But here's the thing: people who are addicted to porn generally there's a lot of issues that come behind it. Continuing in with what I was saying before, there's another type. There's 6 types I was going through. I was up to number 5. So type number 5 is intimacy anorexia, and these are basically addicts who have been trying to get sober but keep having flat tires. In other words, if you've been sober from acting out behaviors for a year, but your wife wants to leave you now because nothing's changed, that is basically what's called asexual emotional anorexic. So for people that go through this, these are withholding intimacy caused by a spouse or partner, often to feel like a roommate. So if there are lots of different little categories that can apply to people like this, and if there are 5 or more, they can be a warning sign of an addiction. And I can give you these 11 basic warning signs to an addiction level of addiction or sex withholding. So withholding love, withholding praise or appreciation, control by silence or anger, criticism causing isolation, withholding sex, blaming partner for everything, staying very busy to avoid partner time, control, shame with money issues, unable to share feelings, withholding spiritual connection, and feeling more like a roommate. So these types of sex addicts are basically withholding sex from your partner or partners. These are more psychologically and spiritually damaging because and most often lead to having extramarital affairs. They lead to partners leaving or divorcing. And it's not, like I said, with intimacy anorexia, it's not just about sex here. We're talking about intimacy in all forms. These are when I'm talking about intimacy, I'm talking about the vulnerability that comes with a relationship, having heart to hearts, having to share a bank account, having to I mean, not all is applicable, but I'm just giving you basic examples. Having to love somebody, or having to love somebody and having them love you in return. Having praise and appreciation for them. So, in other words, I'm not just walking around in front of my partner, flaunting myself and getting no reaction. When you get no reaction, you are withholding. You're withholding that appreciation and praise for the person that they are. It's got nothing to do with ego. It's got nothing to do with a high. It's got nothing to do with anything of that nature. It's got to do with the vulnerability that comes with sharing emotion with your partner. And of course, all of those addiction signs that I just was talking about have a lot to do with toxic relationships. So just because you may be experiencing a toxic relationship and some of this may actually be applying to people who are in a toxic narcissist relationship as well. So sexuality and sex addicts do come in many forms. Just remember that. The warning signs for that type of relationship is basically withholding from your partner. So you don't want to be living and betting with your partner. You want to be all encompassing. So that one there is going to ring a lot of bells for a lot of people. It's not to say that your partner has a problem. It's saying that there are many highlighted issues that need to be worked on in order to have a much better, healthier relationship. The sixth type is mood disorder. There are a lot of mood disorders that affect sex addicts, and this addiction deals with the chemical imbalances and using the sexual addiction to medicate the imbalance. So in other words, instead of using pharmaceutical medications, you're now using sex as a medication to heal, or to eradicate whatever pain you're having in your body. It goes a lot, very, very similar. Of course, women don't use it for this, and it's not an addiction. But to give you an example, women who suffer from PMS or from symptoms in the reproductive system, for i.e. you get your monthlies and blah, 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 you feel comfortable. Your pain relief is basically to have sex, and that you won't have so much ovulation pain and blah, 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 blah. So that's not an addiction. That is basically a type of pain relief that can be used in the form of sex. Now, mood disorders can enhance that, and we're talking about addictions that so instead of using pharmaceutical medications, you're now using sex on a regular basis in order to counteract for those pharmaceutical medications, whatever that may be. So these, and using it more than regularly, and with that, the sexual addiction, they're using it to balance out whatever the mood disorder may be. So you see it quite often in people that are bipolar. They use sex as an alternative to deal with everything. But you also got to remember too that I'm going to debunk some myths here that people think that I think that are applicable anyway. the common myth that sex addicts have sex all the time. Let me remind you that addiction is never actually a quantity issue. Yes, if we drink often, we might be more likely to be an alcoholic. But if we have a lot of sex, we might be more likely to be a sex addict. But some sex addicts, for example, merely think about sex non-stop, and they have very little, if any, real sexual encounters. So a sex addiction, if your thoughts and actions around sex run your life in ways that damage your relationships, social life, family life, and possibly even your career, of course an addict often spends time convincing him or herself. I'm not counting out you ladies here, because I'm not even focusing on who is in a sex addict by gender, because there are a lot of women out there that are sex addicts. We just often label them as nymphs or whores or sluts. Call it what you will. They're just labels. The other myth I can debunk: you can easily spot a sex addict. Yes, some people evidently lack sexual boundaries and come across as overly sexually available. I only have to go to social media to find that one out. Anybody that likes taking photos of themselves in sexual natured ways can easily be recognized in some ways as a sex addict. Often these are only just basics. So you don't have to look into it and say, hey, I'm wrong and I take photos of myself, but does that mean that I'm a sex addict too? No, I'm not saying that. There are a lot more things that come with that. So people in this context, though, it's often a sign that of not just addiction but codependency, personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, or borderline personality disorder. But many sex addicts are the last person you suspect, and addiction is often by its very nature hidden. So the next one is sex addicts love sex. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, sex addicts engage in sexual fantasy or behaviors leaving them feeling mired in shame and self-hatred. And they may think of things that repulse them and yet turn them on, or have sex with people they don't even like. Touche to those people that like saying out there, especially you guys, put a bag over your head. You may want to think about what you say before you say it. But the most part, they're very, very out of touch with themselves and their desires, but they have to go back to square one with discovering what they truly like and don't like when it comes to sex. The next one is that sex addicts are always players. You can easily be in a relationship and still be a sex addict. And perhaps, for example, you constantly self-pleasure and fantasize or have ongoing sexual chats with strangers over the internet behind your partner's back. Or you might use sex addictively with your partner, demanding it constantly and getting angry or upset if they can't meet your needs, and using sex over communication when the relationship falters. Some sex addicts carry out their addiction by always thinking that they are in love. And they have many intense relationships, one after the other, and it can overlap the love addiction or romance addiction. The next one is sex addicts are predators. Let me remind you that a sexual predator seeks power over another person, and the rush or the high of it is about degrading or hurting the other person. And often they show little or no remorse, blaming the other person for the interaction or claiming it was beyond their control. And a sex addict is seeking relief from inner pain. Sexual addiction is not about the other person at all. The person they hurt is themselves, and they again suffer shame and guilt. But always remember something here. Sex addiction does not always involve the other people. It can be carried out via compulsive self-pleasuring or thought things like excessive visits to strip bars and use of online chat rooms. And here's another myth. If you are a sex addict because you have sexual issues, sex addiction is not at root about sex at all. And like all addictions, rather than a maladaptive coping mechanism and response to trauma. Addictive behavior allows us to even briefly escape who we are and all the thoughts and feelings that we don't like. And it's true, however, that the trauma driving sexual addiction is often sexual abuse as a child. And it leaves problematic thoughts, feelings, and boundaries around sex. That is said, other forms of trauma can also lead to sexual addiction, including neglect, physical abuse, manipulation, or lack of attachment. And the last one is sex addiction is fun. Many people like to joke that they're sex addicts. But for those who truly do suffer sexual addiction, life is far from fun. Sex addiction brings a constant cycles of highs and lows that leaves you out of control, mired in self-hatred and shame, and leaves you unable to trust yourself. And it often comes hand in hand, as what I was saying before, goes hand in hand with depression, anxiety, high levels of stress, and other addictions like overeating, overuse of alcohol, and drugs, and severe loneliness. And there's nothing enjoyable to anyone about that. And here's the thing, is that I was going back before talking about compassion and judgment. If we showed compassion, and maybe sex addiction, these people who do suffer from sex addiction don't really know that they're actually doing it to themselves. And they're sabotaging themselves. But when we notice these things happen, we really do need to question and say that question like we did last week. Are you okay? Ask. But don't just be too quick to label somebody. Because that's the last thing you want to be doing, is labeling. Talk. We've all forgotten. We're in COVID-19 right now. We've all forgotten how to talk to each other. Learn about your partner. Learn about your children. If you've got adolescents that are going through puberty right now, talk to them.
And that's the problem. Not many people know how to communicate. You know, when they're going through some sort of issues or whatever it may be, people don't have that communication. And what happens is it breaks down in a lot of things. And because they're feeling so isolated, they turn to other things. And see, that's what this whole show is about tonight. I'm sorry. I'm going to tell you guys again, I'm sorry. I am at my family's house. we're having a family get together. So I'm sorry if I been a little bit distracted today. I do apologize. That's not how I like to conduct my show, because addictions and things like that are not topics that I take lightly. They are very, very important topics because people are suffering with these addictions. So I want to apologize for that. But I mean, we just literally need to be more compassionate towards one another. We all are humans. We all go through whatever type of circumstances. There's somebody out there who probably shared a similar circumstance that happened to them. There's people you could talk to. There's places you could reach out to. So, when we talk about things like this on our show, it's more along the lines to open up that communication, right? So, it's one of those things that if we all just learn literally to say hello and how are you and are you okay, that can really help a lot of people going through these processes. It's just unfortunate that we can't show compassion.
And that's the other thing is that going back to the preventive measures that go hand in hand with addiction. If you find somebody as an alcoholic, if you find someone that has an addiction to substance abuse, they're abusing themselves. Just remember that addicts do not stick to one substance of choice. They have multiple. They mix. They do cocktails. They'll do anything and everything. Remember, going back to dealing with trauma and healing. Dealing with trauma using multiple substances. Let's say, for instance, Coke may work, but it works for a little while before the fix becomes so great of their next shoot up that they're looking for something else that is a little bit more addictive than the first, because it covers it's like putting a band-aid on band-aid on a band-aid on a band-aid, and then you wonder why you have so many people out there that are lost, confused, lonely, feeling unloved, unvalued, shameful, and embarrassed. And the problem is, the biggest problem is that we're being taught many, many myths about what addiction really is, what hypersexuality really is. That these myths perpetuate the stigma associated with addiction, causing people who need help to continually hide their conditions. There is nothing wrong with having an addiction. The problem is the underlying issue of why you have the addiction in the first place. What are you hurting from? What have you experienced in the past that you have been unable to heal from? And by coming out this evening and trying to dispel the myths associated that keep addicts in the shadows, we can help people as a collective to reach more people for treatment, to get them treatment that they really need. Like I said in last week's show, you are walking down a street. How many of us stop there and wonder what's really going on behind closed doors? And we make so many assumptions about addiction based on erroneous portrayals of it in the media. Outdated information. What was that drug? The one that made people crazy and bite off people's ears, that was down in Florida.
Was it crocodile or whatever it was? No, that's the one that turned your skin into a crocodile. And I think it was the fentanyl mix.
I can't remember.
But I know what you're talking about. I don't remember what it's called at the moment.
There are multiple different. There's currently a new craze right now, how many Benadryls can you take? This was just recently done out in the news about on TikTok. Somebody started a social media craze. How many Benadryl tablets can you take in order to get high? I think somewhere in the Midwest they reported, I don't know if it was Texas or Arizona or somewhere down there, that I'd have to double check the article, but there are reports of people injuring themselves, going to hospital, and I think there was one occurrence of somebody dying. But there is a social media craze right now of people ingesting a lot of Benadryl tablets in order for them to get their high, only to find out that they're actually really overdosing themselves and almost to the point of fatality.
Wow.
Majority of these people are young adolescents. I mean, I thought we went through the whole phase of bath salts.
Tide Pods.
Yeah, Tide Pods. They're all, it's part of social, I mean, if you want to call it an addiction, it's part of a social media addiction trend. Following other people because it just makes you feel good.
It's like that monkey do, monkey see effect, like we were talking about on last show. You know, it's just like everybody wants to be a part of the crowd, but nobody wants to be the one outside of it. They feel like they don't want to be the loner. You know what I mean? And I'm sorry, I'm perfectly happy being a loner.
Why would anybody ingest Tide Pods anyway? Because they make you explode.
Well, that's the same thing. Or why would you pour hot water on the boiling water challenge, or the putting yourself in rubbing alcohol and lighting yourself on fire challenge? Like there's.
What I mean by explode is really bad diarrhea.
No, it's actually it can actually poison you if you ingest it. It actually doesn't give you just diarrhea. It actually is a corrosive, and things that are corrosive actually pretty much is exactly what it says. It eats away at your intestines and your organs, and it causes holes in them and ulcers, and it's just not what people think it is. People really don't understand the harm when they're doing these things. Same thing with addiction. When people start something, they don't understand the harm that they are putting themselves through. But what happens is that now they become addicted to the substance inside the actual substance itself, and that's exactly what they start. What they start getting stuck on, and then they become addicted to it. So it's a whole process.
Yeah, I don't understand why people ingest something that makes them really uncomfortable and it makes them sick or even die. I don't understand.
Well, because it's a temporary fix. It gives you a temporary fix. That's why they're craving it more and more and more. And that's what happens. When we're craving things more and more, we ingest more and more. That's why so many people, unfortunately, are victims of overdosing. And a lot of times, there's no help that can get to them, so they wind up pretty much becoming, deceased because of it. And, when we think of this stuff, we say, as somebody looking in who doesn't have the situation, oh, it's their fault. No, honestly, it's all of our fault. It's a whole system.
It is. It's a social ill.
It's a social issue. And, we're actually getting close to time. And, we can touch base back on this next weekend, but it's a social problem, guys. It's an everybody problem. It's not just one person problem. These things are out there because people created them. These things are out there because people put labels on these things and they glorify these things. Just like with all the stuff like Katie was just saying on social media. We see things being distributed in nightclubs and date rape drugs, and it's just, these are all tied into the addiction, and it's the euphoric feeling you feel. It's the endorphins that you feel. It's kind of like when you want to feel adrenaline. Some people are addicted to adrenaline rushes. They're called adrenaline junkies. This is what we see, and when we look at it, it's like, well, it's their problem. No, it's all of our problem. It's literally all of our problem. It's a social problem we have, and it's not just one person. We should be here to help everybody, not just self. That's what Katie was talking about earlier. When she saw somebody who fell over, she stopped and helped them. Well, guess what? If that was me, I would stop and help them. I remember there was an individual 2 Thanksgivings ago who didn't have any food. And I made it a point before me and my family sat down to eat, we actually went and we brought them food so they can eat too. And that was not my problem, right? That had nothing to do with me. Me and my family had food. But then when you look at it, no, it is our problem. It is everybody's problem. We all can help out in these causes. We can all change things if we want to. And all it starts with is changing our mentalities to understand that some of these people that are put in certain positions are not put there purposely. They did not force themselves into this situation where they want to be addicted or where they want to be homeless or where they want to have no finances. Yeah, and this is what we're seeing. It's a social problem, and we need to start looking at it from that angle. Is that we need to start stepping up our game and putting a stop to these stupid challenges, putting a stop to hunger, putting a stop to homelessness. We need to start putting our efforts into things that better us and not defeat us. And unfortunately, we don't all do that. And so, with that being said, I am Amanda Mcmanus, and I want to thank you for joining us on Goddesses.
Thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome, Christopher.
And before we
thank you all for joining us on Goddesses and Devils. And again, I want to say I am truly sorry. I am not currently in my home. I'm spending time with my family. So, there was a lot of distractions tonight. And I do apologize. Like I said, well. But that's the whole point, right? Life happens. It's happening all around us. Sometimes when we want to sit here and do whatever we want to do, it doesn't work that way. But those are cherishable moments. Me spending time with my family is cherishable. So we got to kind of look at it as like, well, is it really negative? No, it's not. I just got to move over a little bit. Or I got to take time and pause my video so they can get past me type of thing. It's just one of those things. So it's all about working together, right? That's exactly what it is. And that's promoting help, the positivity, the love, the light, and all that. So, like I said, thank you for watching us and listening to us here on Goddesses and Devils. We'll be back at it next Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And Katie, before we leave, Katie will tell us where you can catch our archives and where you can find us. And we look forward to it. And please like, share, and subscribe. And thank you guys. I love you all.
And I just wanted to make note before we do finish up to call the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration National Helpline. If you don't know that number, it's 1-800-662-HELP 4357. If you don't know the dial pad. They are a national helpline, is free, confidential, 24/7, 365 days a year, treatment referral and information service in English and Spanish for individuals and families facing mental and or substance abuse disorders. So if you are going through a family member, seeing somebody in trouble, and you don't know how to quite approach it, there are many hotlines here in the United States that deal with not just individuals, but families as well. So if you are seeing somebody that you even a friend, if you see someone going through some stuff, call them, find out, ask them, see which way to approach the whole situation. Not everybody out there is going to know. So these hotlines are designed for you to access the resources that are out there for people. Don't force anybody into programs. Don't force an intervention because you see it fit. Because that's the last thing that you want to be doing. Making problems even worse. Because it can drive an addict to abuse themselves even more by intervention. So next time you're walking down the street, remember to say, I love you. Are you okay? And give somebody a glimmer of hope. Maybe they will find the light of day.
I agree.
And so with that said, you are listening to Goddesses and Devils on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network. I am Katie Kamara, and my co-host is Amanda Mcmanus. You can find us on www.soma-fusion.com. My YouTube channel is Soma Fusion, Mind, Body, and Soul. Go like, share, and subscribe. We will be back next week, possibly with a part 2 of this show or another subject. If you would like to, in the comments up on the Facebook live stream, if you would like to hear us talk about a specific topic of your choice, please put it in the comments and we'll find it a little later. If you have any suggestions or have any questions regarding the shows that we do, feel free to reach out to us individually on social media. We are highly easily able to be found. So go over there. But until then, it is my time to bid you adieu. Bid you all well.
Adieu. Au revoir.
Oh, I can't speak English. What the hell? Anyway, so we'll see you next week, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network. I will also be on air Monday. No, I'm not. Why am I saying Monday? Monday's a public holiday. Wednesday. Change my own time. Wednesday, I'll be on at 9 p.m. I have a guest on, Doctor. I just promoted him. I'm having a bad night, I swear.
You'll be having a guest on whose name
Reverend
is
Ed Broderick. And the next show after this is Reverend Ed Broderick.
Who will be on Katie's show next Wednesday. If you didn't hear that, you can catch Reverend Ed Broderick on Wednesday on Katie's show that she does at 9 p.m. You can catch her here on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network, which she will be streaming live on Facebook, and you can catch her archives, the same places you can catch Goddesses and Devils. So I just wanted to help Katie out there. I love you, Katie.
Excited. But anyway, but no, I'm sure Reverend Ed would be more than pleased that I just called him a doctor. So I wish him luck on his show because he's got a great guest coming up. I think Matt is on with him tonight. So feel free, you guys who are listening right now, to continue on listening. If you are on Facebook, the show will appear on my wall in about 15 minutes. So be there or be square. Have a lovely long weekend, and we'll see you next time.
I'll be back here in a few minutes.
Bye.
Bye. Good night. Love you guys.
Cool.